has to be by far one of the biggest changes that we've made back here with the animals in a long time, and that was that if you notice, if you've been watching for long enough and you notice, the big blue shell pond that's usually sitting in this corner is gone. And I have to say, I can't believe how much space is in here without that pond there. I know it's big. Like, I see it every day. I know it's big. I'm the one who put it in there. But when you get used to seeing something taking up a space when it's gone, it's like, it's just weird. You really get to see how big the space is once again. It took hours and hours and hours to drain the pond, clean as much of the algae off the sides as possible. There were only 2 fish in there, so we put them temporarily inside the fish tank in the house. Luckily there are only 2 fish in there. They're also goldfish, and what it is that my son has a fish tank, and as the fish grow out of the fish tank and get big enough that they can go in the pond, they get put in there. So there are 4 fish in total. 2 were already in the fish tank and 2 were in the pond. I'm guessing the other ones have gotten eaten over time. We did find 1 skeleton to a fish, like the complete skeleton, hidden in the leaves at the bottom of the pond. And guys, there were a lot of leaves in this pond. Let me see if I can't walk around and get a better look of where the pile is, because it was crazy. Okay, so it is a huge mess. We did not have time to finish cleaning up after we emptied out the pond. There's a lot, like all of these cinder blocks that were the staircase to the pond. It's just a huge mess. Really is the nice way to put it. It is a mess. So you can see where we pumped most of the water out underneath the fence where nobody walks or stands into the grass. So it'll soak up really quickly. But the last 30 gallons or so, it did not want to drain out. We had to kind of dump out the pond here, and there were a lot of leaves in the bottom of it. So everything in here is just a muddy, mucky mess. But there are also all of these cinder blocks that the animals used to get in and out of the pond, and so they were stacked up in a staircase. And so today I'm going to have to come in and move these and get them out of the way so they're not running around in here and tripping over them, which they've been really good about not. But I know that they're really interested in these leaves. You can see late last night I came out. It was actually early morning. I was up doing my schoolwork still until about 1 a.m. And that's when I finished, just when I brought them the other half of this watermelon. And not only did they eat it, but Dorian's been eating the rind. The geese actually like to eat the rind of the watermelon, which is perfectly fine. Humans can eat the watermelon rind. They have like pickle watermelon rind. That's so hard for me to say, guys. Relish and everything else. So they have like several recipes where you can use the rind after you use the melon. So you don't have to worry about it. It is edible for people and for animals. So Dorian's just having the time of his life. These geese, they love things like that. And look at this. All of these leaves. Now, this pile is actually a couple of inches thick. And it just stretches everywhere. It was huge before we put these cinder blocks here. The animals came in and they were scratching around and looking for treats in the leaves. So there are a ton of leaves that were in this pond, and they all come up from this oak tree. There's this massive oak tree that was right above where the pond was, and all those leaves are falling in. Now, this tree has grown substantially since we put the pond here, because these were not this way over here. They were cut. You can kind of see where it was cut back quite a bit, and it's just grown all on its own. So it's kind of crazy the amount of growth we've had over the last couple of years, and that's why it's getting into the pond. And that was just a big mess to try to clean out, and it wasn't worth it. So what we did was move the pond over here into this area where the ducks are. And we still are going to move the rills out and then put up a different fence. Instead of just these temporary IBC containers. We just had them, so it made sense to use them to extend it. But now we're going to put up an actual fence and finish off the front fencing right there. One of the reasons that we moved this is, one, there's a lot more area over here, and this area holds a lot of water anyways. And another reason that we did it in this area is because it already has some semblance of a fence around it. I don't have to worry about my daughter getting too close to the pond. She's infatuated with the water. Now, she cannot physically stand herself up to get inside of it, but still, if it's an open area and she was outside in her wheelchair, she could reach over the side of it and play in the water, which is still dangerous and scary when she's not being supervised. Now, she is never ever she's never ever alone. She's always with one of us, absolutely. But why risk it, right? Like, in the off crazy chance that she may be alone, which will never happen, but still. Or other kids from the neighborhood coming out here. I just don't want them near an open pond. It's just one of those things that really scares me and really freaks me out. Even if we do get a larger property, which we've always talked about doing in the long run, wherever we dig a large pond, even if it was half an acre, it would... Will you stop chasing him? You are such a jerk. Hobble is chasing quackers like crazy, and honestly, Hobbles is about to just be gone. I cannot take it anymore. It wasn't a problem until we got quackers, but I think, having another male duck, it's just too much for Hobble to take. But as you can see, one of these young babies right here is a male, and he's still a young male. He hasn't even fully got his coloring, but I'm thinking he's going to replace Hobble, because I cannot take just how mean Hobble has become in the last 6 or so months. It's just getting out of control. I know that Welsh Harlequin drakes are a bit more aggressive, but he's just overly aggressive in my opinion. He's an absolute jerk who goes out of his way to pick on quackers, and I just can't have that in my flock. It's one thing to be a more aggressive breeder. It's another thing to be in a different section of the pen and see another duck and chase after them. Like, dude, chill out. You're getting ridiculous. So that's something that is starting to wear on me a little bit. Okay, so here's where the pond is now, and they're just coming in from the other side to see what I'm doing. They cannot get into it. We did not make any type of access. Hubble, I swear, dude, chill out. He's just being a brat today, like more than usual. Getting ridiculous, that one. You can see Hubble's being so annoying that nobody wants to be around. Like, half of them are breaking off. Now, we do have these babies over here that are starting to get really good amount of feathers on them. And there's, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There are 8 of them. And they're all making, for the most part, I haven't found one that's not making that little quacking sound. So it looks like they're all going to be female, which is crazy. But we did keep them. We kept 3 that we were pretty sure were females, and then we kept the other ones based off their colors. So I guess just a coincidence, we hatched out like 60 something ducklings, and we sold most of them and then kept these guys. And 1 or 2 we only kept because they ended up hatching after we sold all the other ducklings, and I didn't want to make a listing for 2 ducklings. And so when the other colors hatched out, at least they had some. So we have a little more ducks than we planned on, but my girls are over 2 years old, some of them, and I think it's good to kind of start preparing to have more ducks. Now, our ducks will continue to lay pretty well for the next 3 years. I haven't seen like a huge reduction in the way ducks lay until about 5 years, but it does fall off gradually every year. But I have to say, I think ducks lay a lot better and a lot longer than chickens, at least for their prime years. Now, we once had a pet chicken who was an old English bantam named Dolly. She was an egg-laying machine. We ended up keeping her until she was 10 years old. She died when she was 10, and of natural causes. But she laid eggs until the season she passed away, and you can see what I mean by Hobble's just being a jerk. I need to try and catch him. He's really hard to catch though, and just put him away by himself for a while because he's just being ridiculous. Even the geese are not having it. They think this is ridiculous. So, she ended up laying eggs the season that she passed away too, but she only laid 2 or 3 eggs and hatched them out too, which is really crazy. So she was just a great pet chicken to have, and we kept her until the end. So I can definitely say when it comes to chickens, like, they definitely reduce the amount of eggs that they lay over time. But ducks do too. It's just not as dramatic as it is with chickens or as fast. I find that they lay a little bit longer and have a few more years of prime than chickens do. I don't know what happened, but my voice is getting all crazy. It sounds so weird. And it feels weird when I'm talking too, so I think it's allergies, honestly. We have a lot of oak trees around our yard and a lot of pollen. You can just see like some of the limbs are like golden yellow. They are a golden yellow from all of the pollen. And I think that really contributed to the issues we had with this pond. If you guys remember, this pond was like bright electric green. No matter what we did, it kept clogging the filters. It was awful. And so we just drained it out. Really, my husband drained it out. And Sam helped spray the sides of it with, we have an attachment for the water hose, and it is kind of like a pressure washer attachment. And so you just twist it on there and it creates a high pressure nozzle, and then most of the algae was able to spray off, but it came in like sheets just falling off. It was awful. This is not coming off as easily. So it was completely cleared out, but you can see kind of the green on the issue. We're going to end up probably having to get some actual chemicals to put in this water, even temporarily, because it's just so bad. Hopefully not being under that giant oak tree makes a difference, but there are still trees everywhere. Like, there are trees all over back here. It's just not directly underneath the one like it was. And it wasn't directly underneath one when we put it there. That oak tree, just the branches grew massively. So here we have the pump, and you can see the beginning of the system right here. It's not completed. There's some more parts that need to be gotten. And then this is the bubbler right here, this little contraption. And this is just one way to drain. This is how the pool drains. And previously we just had it turned upside down, and we could turn this. And I showed in the past where I had a water hose attached, where I could use the water from the pond, partially drain it, and use it to water my garden. So that was always great, and I can still do that. Pump out the water. The water hose will actually attach to this, and I can pump it out and use it to water different areas. There's just not anything to water back here because of the way everything's set up. Our backyard's basically just empty and holds objects. That's it. It's not a gardening space. It's not a hanging out space. It's a space that holds a lot of water that even though it's been 7 years, we just haven't got around to, because this house was a huge project when we bought it. We're still fixing up the inside. We are still fixing up the yard. It's been a lot of work. So, if you're buying up a huge fixer-upper and you know it's a fixer-upper, but that's the only way you can get into housing at that time, just know 7 years in, you may still be fixing up that project. It can be a lot of work, and that is perfectly acceptable and okay. So I don't want you guys to get discouraged. We saved a ton of money buying our house when we did. I was 25. It was 3 days after my 25th birthday when we closed on this house. So it's been just a great house. And then this year I turned 32, and we'll have been here 7 years. So it's taken a long time to get all of this settled. And actually, we actually closed on the house, and then, so if that may be when we moved in. We may have closed on before that. I don't think so. No, I think we closed then, and then she ended up having to pay us like a certain amount a day for a couple of months before we could move in, because they didn't have everything moved out yet. So we didn't get to move in immediately, but that's okay. And there was a lot to clean up in the yard when we did move in. I mean, there were like, the grass was above my waist. There was so much lawn equipment just everywhere. It was a true nightmare situation. But it was the only way that we could afford to get a 4-bedroom, 2-bathroom home in this area, so it was worth it. Sometimes I question if it was worth it, but for the most part it was worth it. Believe me, do it yourself can get exhausting sometimes. And so I think this pond is no exception, right? It's also a do-it-yourself that can be kind of exhausting sometimes. And so here is, this is attached to the bubbler, and so it comes up here and it's kind of crimped in, and then it comes back down. And what he's done is take this PEX tubing and wrap it around in a circle, zip tie it on, and he poked holes in it, so when it's turned on, it actually bubbles up in the center and aerates all of the water, which is really cool. And then you can see our water hose just hanging out in there, because this isn't filled up all the way. He filled it really about halfway, and then it was bedtime by the time all of that work happened. And since he had to go to work, he just kind of let it be. So here's the system, the beginning of it. We'll see what happens. I previously had the ducks and geese, allowed them in this pond. I'm just not sure anymore. You know, I don't know if we are going to dig out an area for them or how it's going to work exactly. That's something that we're still trying to figure out. We have considered actually building up dirt all the way around it so that they can get in it more easily, kind of like a dirt ramp around it. I don't know. It depends on how hard it would be to control the algae if they're in there, because they use the bathroom, they make a mess, everything else. And obviously, especially with the water being clear, we can't just have fish in it with the ducks and geese, because they will eat the fish. So, and the funny thing is, the fish that we have that are so big, they were feeder fish from a couple of seasons ago that we bought to be eaten, and they somehow managed to survive and now they're over 6 inches long. So that's really crazy. So this is it. This was one of the big projects. I know I probably should have recorded the process of it happening, but it's already really hot, and it's so complicated to try and record the process of things happening and do the work. It's just not necessarily easy sometimes. So we did the work. It's over here. He did most of the work, to be real honest. And so this is kind of what we're looking at. it is a major change, and it's also over here by the fence.
Can get it.
Yep. It's over here by the fence right now so that the water can be pumped out. All this stuff can go right here. And I think that will make it easier in the long run, but we'll kind of see how things go. The one thing that is really nice though is that I did want to have some vining plants right here, but I couldn't because the animals can just grab the plant. So I thought about putting some kind of predator chicken wire over the top of the fencing wire. Stop it. Do not put that in the pond, please. Thank you. See that? We don't just have animals and trees dumping stuff. We have little kids dumping stuff into it. And, I don't even remember what I was saying. I was so distracted by him about to put that piece of bark into the water. Oh yes, I've been wanting to plant like something pretty here to climb. And I did in this planter box over here. I had a passion fruit planted, and the ducks managed to somehow get their heads all the way through and clip off most of the plant. And then what they didn't, when the baby geese got big enough to reach, they were tall enough to reach over the bricks in the corner there, which are 3 bricks high, and completely devour all of the plants that were in there at the time. So that was really disappointing. And don't you dare. So, I don't know how that would work, growing something. I know it wouldn't really affect anything here. I just don't know about the leaves falling into the pond. But as you can see, there are already some leaves from trees that have made their way back in here. I know it won't be like leaf-free, I guess you could. I don't know how to say it, but it won't be debris-free. It won't be leaf-free ever, as long as there's at least one tree in this yard. But hopefully we can kind of maintain some of it, and it's just easier than before. That's really the goal here. So let me go show the 2 fish that we found still in the pond after we emptied it out, which is mind-blowing that these, at the time, feeder fish were like 11 and 22 cents a piece, depending on the size. So these were some cheap fish that we got I don't know, they were a while ago, and they managed to make it through all of that. I want to say it was 2 seasons ago that we got this set of feeder fish, because a few years ago we got feeder fish and the ducks did not eat them for some reason, and we ended up having to take them to my grandmother's pond. So this is the more recent one. I think it was 2 seasons ago that we got them. So let me show you that, and then I'm gonna head out, and there's just so much to do. Hey buddy, while you're in there, will you please go get that egg over there? It's in the corner. Look, there's an egg over there by those baby ducklings. Yeah, will you grab it please? So here is the fish. It took me a minute to kind of get in here because my youngest son's being extra spicy this morning. I think he's just bored and wants to kind of play outside in the water. But there's so much to do inside, and it is a school day, so though they have to get back to doing their schoolwork after having spring break, and I think that they're not excited about that. It's hard to get back in the swing of doing your schoolwork when you've been on spring break. So these 2 littler fish are the ones that were in what we recently bought for the pet store. So these are our smaller fish, and we bought them a little larger. So they haven't grown a lot since we got them. They have grown some, but you can kind of see they're used to being fed by my son, who basically his job is to take these 2 and raise them up to about this size, so that they were big enough to go in the pond. Now, this is not the biggest fish tank, but it's a decent size for those 2 fish. It's more than they need, and that's because they say a gallon an inch, and these guys, this guy's about 6 inches. And this one, while it doesn't have the fancy tail, isn't the same thing. Now, these came from the same feeder fish tank. So you can see there's definitely some variation among those feeder fish as they grow. Now, I'm glad that we only put 2 fish in here because I wasn't expecting to have to put these bigger fish in here with them, and there's enough room for all of them. So that's really good. They just don't know what to think about all of this. I was worried putting them in here because, you know, they went from being outside and all of that to this water. But at the same time, carp are pretty hardy fish, so I think they're doing okay. Just look at the sheer size of them. Guys, when we got these bigger fish, they were way smaller than these fish. They were like this big. They were little tiny feeder goldfish, so you can see that they have grown substantially. I think this one's actually more than 6 inches. I think its body alone is, you know, it's 6 inches. It looks so much smaller in the camera than it is, which is funny, but it's a good size fish. They both are. This is Try right here, and Darkness is this one down here with the black. He has black tips on his tail, and that's how we tell the difference. It actually looks like this needs to be cleaned again a little bit, so we'll have to do that this weekend. So that's it. These are the 4 fish that we have, and I guess we need to figure out the pond situation and what we're going to do before we decide where to put these fish, or if we're going to have to build another small pond for them, or if they're going to go in that pond and we're not going to let the ducks and stuff in it, or exactly what we are going to do. That is kind of what we're trying to figure out right now. There is a lot to decide, so I guess once we figure it out, I'll update you guys and let you know. Thanks for hanging out with me. I know I'm a little out of it. I'm so tired still. That's what I get for staying up all night. But the easiest time to do my schoolwork is when the kids are in bed. It is definitely hard to do it during the day. So sometimes that just means sacrificing some sleeping time to get things done. So thank you guys again. And we'll update you once we figure out what we are doing with this pond.